We've all heard that phrase, don't go to bed mad, right? You're not supposed to go to bed angry at your family or loved ones or whatever because you never know, time is never guaranteed, blah, blah, blah. And I don't agree with that. And I know it's going to be controversial, and there's going to be a bunch of you who are like, that's not a good way to live. I'm surprised you would say that. But here's the thing. If you go to bed angry because you haven't found resolution in what it is that you are upset about, then you're being dismissed. And either you're being dismissed by the person you're angry with, or you're dismissing yourself and not validating your own feelings. I don't agree with that. You could go to bed agreeing to disagree. You could go to bed feeling as if you haven't been heard and standing your ground. That's strength for you. Those are boundaries. I don't agree with just randomly saying, you know what, let's just not talk about this anymore, because that's dismissive. When I was in high school, I spent a week with my grandparents, and I went and flew down to Florida and spent some time with them. And I really hadn't spent too much time with them growing up because lots of reasons. But at this point in my life, it was because they had moved to Florida for the most part. And I remember being in the car with them, and they were arguing and they were bickering about something. And my grandmother got to a point where she was like, she'd had enough. And she's like, Harley, amen. And he'd be like, amen. And then the fighting would just stop. And then every next time they'd come up again, and he'd come up again. And no, amen, amen. And the arguing would stop. And I remember feeling, my first thought was, that's a weird way to argue. And then I felt like, well, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's the same as you telling your partner that they need to shut up. You don't want to hear what they have to say anymore, and they're going to shut up. And they have to agree with shutting up. And I remember feeling, I don't remember what the argument was about, but I remember feeling like, but what if Grandpa was right? Like, what if he wasn't the one who was wrong in that situation? And now you're just completely telling him to stop because his valid opinion isn't valid anymore because you said so. I feel like that is the same thing. And I bring this up because I just don't go to bed happy every night. I have no problem with sleeping in another room. I have no problem with, letting something continue till the morning. Because what that does for me is it allows the person that I'm arguing with to know that I have boundaries, that I am not okay with this situation, and this argument is not over with. I also struggle with the concept of just randomly forgiving people. Forgiveness is about you. No, forgiveness is so that you can forgive yourself for getting so upset over it. That's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is never about randomly and blindly forgiving somebody for something that they did, because you can't do that. You can't just say, well, what you did is it's no longer bad. It's no longer, but you can forgive yourself for how you respond and how you react to a situation. And the reason I bring that up, because it's kind of the same thing, right? So if you go to bed and you're not mad, that means you're randomly forgiving the person that you're not mad at all of a sudden anymore, and you're supposed to be okay with that. And I'm not okay with that. No, I have opinions, I have thoughts, there's a reason I'm upset. I'm not going to completely dismiss the fact that I'm upset just because we're going to bed at night. It doesn't mean that I don't love the person that I'm arguing with, but if the situation calls for it, I need the boundaries, and I need to be able to stand on my own feet, and I can forgive myself. I can forgive myself for getting that upset over a situation, but I'm not just going to just blindly forgive people for the things that they do, because that doesn't erase anything. Forgiveness is about yourself, but it's not for you forgiving them. It's about you forgiving yourself for your reaction to the things that they did. Shitty things are shitty things, and shitty people are shitty people, and shitty situations are still shitty, whether or not you're going to bed or whether or not you forgave them. That's my thought. That's my random thought before I head off to the office today. Do what you will with that.